On the morning of December 7, 1941, 6 aircraft carriers sat in the cold water of the North Pacific, roughly 200 miles north of Hawaii. Every single plane that fell on Pearl Harbor that morning launched from one of their decks. 6 ships started America's war. And here's the part almost nobody thinks about. Within 3 years, every last one of them was gone. Not one of these 6 carriers survived the war. 4 of them were hunted down and killed together in a single day, just 6 months later. 2 of them slipped away from that slaughter, only to be tracked down and sunk years afterward. One of these wrecks wasn't seen by human eyes for 81 years. 2 of them have never been found at all. They are still out there right now, somewhere in the dark, and nobody knows exactly where. And the very last one went down with her crew standing on the flight deck, saluting the flag as the water came up to meet them. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what happened to all 6 carriers that attacked Pearl Harbor, where they sank, how deep they're sitting, which ones have been found, and which ones are still missing more than 80 years later. Before we go on, I want to say a genuine thank you to everyone watching this channel. Drop a comment and let me know where in the world you're watching from. And if you have any personal connection to Pearl Harbor at all, a family member who served, someone who was there, someone who's visited, I'd really like to hear it. Let's start with what these 6 ships actually were. The force that attacked Pearl Harbor had a name: the Kido Butai, the Mobile Strike Force. It was the most powerful concentration of naval air power on Earth at that moment, and at its heart were 6 fleet carriers. 2 big veterans, Akagi and Kaga. 2 fast newer carriers, Soryu and Hiryu, and the 2 largest and most modern of them all, Shokaku and Zuikaku. Between them they carried over 400 aircraft, and no navy on Earth had ever put that much striking power to sea in one place before. On the morning of December 7th, they launched in 2 waves. The first wave hit the airfields and Battleship Row just before 8 in the morning. The second came less than an hour later into a harbor already burning. By the time it was over, in under 2 hours, 5 American battleships were sunk or sinking, most of the island's aircraft were destroyed on the ground, and more than 2,400 Americans were dead. Then the 6 carriers turned north and vanished back into the empty ocean, slipping away before the US Navy even understood what had hit it, or where it had come from. For a few months they seemed unstoppable. And then, one by one, the Pacific swallowed every one of them. The first 4 went almost together. To understand how, you have to jump forward just 6 months, to June of 1942, and a tiny scrap of coral called Midway. The Japanese plan was to lure the surviving American carriers into a trap and finish the job started at Pearl Harbor. The whole thing depended on surprise, on the Americans having no idea what was coming or where. But this time, the surprise ran the other way. American codebreakers had quietly cracked enough of the Japanese naval code to read the plan before it happened, down to roughly when and where the attack would fall. So when the Kido Butai's planes struck Midway on the morning of June 4th, 3 American carriers were already lying in wait, hidden exactly where the Japanese fleet was certain they couldn't be. The hunters had walked into an ambush without knowing it. In a window of about 6 minutes, American dive bombers caught 3 of the carriers with their decks packed full of fueled, armed aircraft in the middle of rearming. 3 of them were set ablaze almost simultaneously. The 4th was hunted down and finished by that afternoon. Let's take them one at a time, starting with the flagship. Akagi was the pride of the fleet, the ship from which Admiral Chuichi Nagumo commanded the entire Pearl Harbor operation. At Midway, she was caught in that 6-minute window by dive bombers from the carrier Enterprise. It only took 1 bomb, a single hit near her midship elevator, that punched down into the hangar deck, where fueled aircraft and stacked munitions turned the fire into something no crew could fight. By that night, she was a gutted, burning hulk. Rather than let her fall into American hands, Japanese destroyers put torpedoes into her and sent her down themselves. 267 of her men died with her, and then Akagi disappeared for 77 years. Even a dedicated expedition in 1998 led by Robert Ballard, the man who found the Titanic, searched for her and came up empty. It wasn't until October of 2019 that a research vessel called the Petrel, funded by Microsoft co-founder Paul Allen, finally located her by sonar, sitting nearly 18,000 feet down. But finding her wasn't the same as seeing her. The team didn't have the time or the equipment to send cameras down, so Akagi sat there, located but unseen, for another 4 years. It wasn't until September of 2023 that a survey team finally sent a remotely operated vehicle down for the first real look anyone had ever gotten. 81 years after she sank. They spent 14 hours circling her. Her anti-aircraft guns were still standing at their mounts, frozen in the position they held on her last morning, and the chrysanthemum crest, the symbol of the Japanese emperor, was still visible on her bow. Right alongside her in that same 6 minutes, died Kaga. Kaga had started life as a battleship before being rebuilt into a carrier, which left her a strange mix of old armor and new flight deck. At Midway, she took the worst beating of any of them, 4 bombs in quick succession, and the fires that followed killed 811 men. That was the highest death toll of any carrier lost in the entire battle. Like Akagi, she was scuttled rather than surrendered. Kaga's story of discovery is almost stranger than Akagi's. Back in 1999, an expedition found a single piece of wreckage on the seafloor, a torn-off chunk of a gun gallery, and nobody could even agree which carrier it came from. It took researchers years of comparing that fragment against 70-year-old blueprints before they could confirm it belonged to Kaga. But that was just a fragment. The main wreck of the ship herself wasn't found until that same 2019 Petrel expedition that located Akagi days apart. And just like Akagi, she then sat unseen until the 2023 survey finally reached her. When the cameras arrived, they found her with much of her flight deck blown away and her hangar sides ripped outward, her gun mounts still silhouetted against the black water. That's 2 of the 6 accounted for. The 3rd is where it gets frustrating. Soryu was hit in the same terrible 6-minute window struck by 3 bombs from the dive bombers of the carrier Yorktown. She burned fast and hard, faster than the others, and had to be abandoned quickly. Her captain, Ryusaku Yanagimoto, reportedly refused to leave. Survivors say a sailor was sent to carry him off the burning ship by force and couldn't bring himself to do it. The captain stood on his bridge and went down with her. And here is the detail that surprised me most in all of this. To this day, no wreck has ever been conclusively identified as Soryu. That 2019 discovery was very nearly announced as Soryu before the detailed comparison work reassigned it to Akagi instead. As far as the public record shows, Soryu's actual resting place is still unconfirmed, somewhere out there in the same vast debris field as the others, unidentified more than 80 years after she sank. The 4th carrier is the one that fought back the hardest, and she is also the one that got away for a few hours. Hiryu was the last of the 4 still afloat and still fighting after the other 3 were already burning. It was Hiryu's aircraft that found the American carrier Yorktown that afternoon and put her out of the fight. But it didn't save her. That same afternoon, dive bombers caught up with Hiryu and left her ablaze like the rest. When it became clear she couldn't be saved, the admiral commanding her division, Tamon Yamaguchi, considered by many one of Japan's finest officers, chose to stay aboard and go down with the ship rather than be rescued. Survivors describe him and the captain sharing a final quiet moment as the fires spread, watching the moon before the end. Hiryu drifted, burning, for nearly 17 hours before a Japanese destroyer finally torpedoed her to keep her from being captured. 389 men died, and Hiryu, too, has never been found. She sank roughly 80 miles from where the other 3 carriers went down, marked only by rough position estimates scribbled down by escort ships in the middle of a losing battle. That's a search area larger than most countries would ever attempt to comb, 3 miles beneath the surface. She is still out there, unlocated to this day. So, in a single day at Midway, 6 months, almost to the week after Pearl Harbor, 4 of the 6 carriers that started the war were gone. Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, Hiryu. The heart of the Kido Butai wiped out in an afternoon, which leaves 2. And here's the twist that makes their story different from all the rest. Shokaku and Zuikaku, the two biggest, most modern carriers of the six, weren't at Midway at all. A month earlier, at the Battle of the Coral Sea, Shokaku had been badly damaged and Zuikaku had lost too many aircraft and pilots to fight. Both were left behind when the fleet sailed for Midway. That absence almost certainly changed the battle. Two more carriers might have tipped it, but for these two ships, missing Midway meant they survived the massacre that killed their four sisters. For a while, it looked like they might be the ones that made it. They didn't. Shokaku fought on for 2 more years, and she earned a reputation as one of the toughest ships in the fleet. She was battered at the Battle of the Eastern Solomons, hammered again at the Battle of Santa Cruz, where she took multiple bomb hits and survived by sheer damage control. And each time she limped home, got patched up, and went back out. Her crew came to believe she was a lucky ship. She had, after all, outlived 4 of her sisters already. Her luck finally ran out on June 19, 1944, at the Battle of the Philippine Sea. An American submarine, the USS Kavala, slipped through her escort screen undetected and put 3 torpedoes into her side. The timing could not have been worse. She was in the middle of launching and recovering aircraft, her decks and fuel lines full of aviation gasoline, and the torpedo hits touched off a chain of internal explosions that tore her apart from the inside. A final blast is thought to have detonated her bomb magazines. She went down with more than 1,200 of her crew, one of the heaviest losses of any of the 6. Her wreck lies deep in the Philippine Sea and it has never been located or surveyed. She too is simply gone. Which brings us to the last one, Zuikaku, the lucky ship, the only one of the 6 carriers that attacked Pearl Harbor to survive nearly to the end of 1944. By that October, Japan's carrier force was a shadow of what it had been. Zuikaku had almost no aircraft left to fly and almost no trained pilots to fly them. So at the Battle of Leyte Gulf, she was handed one final grim job, to serve as bait. The Japanese plan was to dangle their last carriers, Zuikaku among them, in front of the powerful American carrier fleet under Admiral Halsey, and lure it north and away from the invasion beaches, opening the door for other Japanese forces to strike. It worked. Halsey took the bait and charged north after them, but it was a sacrifice play, and everyone aboard understood exactly what that meant. Zuikaku was being offered up. On October 25, 1944, off Cape Engano, wave after wave of American aircraft found her and tore into her with bombs and torpedoes until she could take no more. As Zuikaku listed hard and it became clear she was finished, her crew was called to attention on the flight deck. The battle flag was lowered, and the surviving sailors stood and saluted it as the deck tilted out from under them and the ship rolled over and went down. 843 men died. The last carrier that attacked Pearl Harbor went to the bottom with her men saluting. Her wreck lies in deep water off the Philippines and, like Shokaku, has never been located. So, where are all 6 of them now? 2 of them, Akagi and Kaga, rest nearly 3.5 miles down near Midway, found only in 2019 and not truly seen until 2023. One of them, Soryu, has never been conclusively identified, lost in the same dark stretch of ocean. One of them, Hiryu, is still completely missing 80 miles away. And the last 2, Shokaku and Zuikaku, lie somewhere in the deep water of the Philippine Sea, unsurveyed, unvisited, marked on no map that anyone can point to. Think about what that actually means. The 6 most powerful warships in the Japanese Navy, the fleet that launched the attack that pulled America into the deadliest war in human history, were all at the bottom of the Pacific within 3 years of the morning they struck Pearl Harbor. Every one of them. 4 killed together in a single afternoon at Midway, barely 6 months after they'd stood at the peak of their power. The other 2 hunted down one at a time, the last of them going under with her flag coming down and her men saluting. Not one of the 6 was still afloat when the war ended, and most of them are still down there right now, undisturbed, exactly where they sank, in water so deep and so remote that reaching them at all is at the very edge of what's possible. That's not because nobody's looked. It's because there's nothing to raise, no treasure, no scrap worth the cost of 3 miles of ocean. What's down there are war graves, the resting places of thousands of sailors, American and Japanese, who never got a burial anywhere else. Every expedition that has reached these wrecks has treated them not as an engineering problem but as a memorial, closing each dive with a ceremony for the dead on both sides. The attack on Pearl Harbor lasted less than 2 hours. The ships that carried it out took 3 years to die and, in some cases, 80 more to be found, if they've been found at all. The fleet that started the war didn't survive it. It's scattered across the floor of the Pacific in pieces, most of it still lost in the dark. Here's the question I'll leave you with. 4 of these carriers have been found. 2 of them, Soryu and Hiryu, are still out there, unlocated, after more than 80 years. Do you think they should be searched for and found? Or are some wrecks better left exactly where they are, undisturbed, with the men still inside them? I genuinely want to know what you think. Let me know in the comments.